A week after I fully paid off my condo, my sister showed up and announced that her parents had agreed to let her family move in. She expected me to leave and find another place. I'm 32, single, no kids, and I work in IT. My parents live 30 minutes away in the same suburb where we grew up. My sister Rachel is 28, married to Mark, and they have a 1-year-old daughter. She was always the one teachers loved, the one neighbors praised. I was the one mowing lawns in the summer while Rachel got to focus on school. My parents never meant to play favorites, but somehow if something broke, it was my fault. If Rachel needed help, the whole family moved mountains. 2 months ago, I finally paid off my condo. A 2-bedroom place in Chicago. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Every inch of it had a story. The second-hand fridge that groaned every time it kicked on. The cheap dining table I assembled wrong so it wobbled whenever someone leaned on it. The closet I converted into a tiny office, because I couldn't afford a bigger place with a real one. For years that condo had been the finish line I crawled toward. I skipped vacations, drove a car old enough to vote, and learned to fix leaky sinks from YouTube instead of calling plumbers. My friends spent weekends at bars. I did DoorDash after work for extra cash. When the bank sent the letter saying the mortgage was paid in full, I stuck it on my fridge with a dumb magnet shaped like a cow. It felt like the biggest win of my life. So when my sister Rachel showed up out of nowhere, that Tuesday afternoon, I thought maybe she'd come to congratulate me. She doesn't usually visit alone. Most of the time, if she's in the area, she drags our parents, or her husband Mark along. But this time it was just her. Standing in my doorway, holding a giant iced coffee, and looking like she already owned the place. "Hey," I said, stepping aside. She walked in without answering, her eyes roaming over everything like she was inspecting an apartment for rent. She peeked into the second bedroom, the bathroom, even my tiny office closet. Finally she stopped in the kitchen, hands on her hips. "This place is bigger than I remember," she said. Thanks." She nodded like she'd just confirmed something in her mind. Then she turned and looked straight at me. "So," she began, like we were already in the middle of a conversation, "we've agreed this place should belong to the family now." I blinked. "Excuse me, a family place," she repeated, slower this time, like I wasn't getting it. "It's ridiculous for you to keep all this room to yourself. When Mark and I have a baby, and rent is impossible, we'll be moving in. You can find somewhere else." She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. I laughed. Because what else do you do when someone says something that insane? But Rachel didn't laugh. She crossed her arms and raised her eyebrows, like I was the one being strange. "Wait, you're serious?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "Mom and Dad agree. It's the best thing for everyone. It's not like you need all this space. It's just you." I looked around my little condo like maybe she'd discovered some secret ballroom I didn't know about. "You're joking, right? You don't just decide you're moving into my place." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. It's a family home now. You'll understand once you have kids." That made me laugh even harder. "Rachel, this isn't a family home. I bought it. I paid for it. It's mine." She waved a hand like that was a minor detail. "Yeah, but come on. It's not fair for you to keep it when we need the space more. You can get an apartment somewhere. Something small. You don't even use the second bedroom." I just stood there. I'd heard plenty of wild things from my family before, but this was on a whole new level. "You've already talked to Mom and Dad?" I asked. "Of course," she said, like it was obvious. "They think it makes total sense." "Do they also think I'm just going to hand over my keys and start packing?" Rachel sighed like I was being difficult. "Look, we're not trying to fight. It's just what's best for everyone. Mark's hours got cut. Daycare costs keep going up. And you're sitting here with 2 bedrooms and no kids. It's kind of selfish, don't you think?" I blinked. "Selfish? Because I worked overtime and skipped dinners out so I could have a stable place to live. And now I'm selfish for not giving it away." Rachel picked up her coffee from the counter like the conversation was already settled. "We'll need to move in by the end of next month. That gives you time to find somewhere." She was already heading for the door before I could respond. "Rachel," I said, finally catching up with what had just happened, "you're not moving in here." She paused with her hand on the doorknob and gave me a small smile. The kind people use when they think you'll eventually come around. "We've already talked to Mom and Dad." "We've already talked to Mom and Dad," she repeated. Then she left. I stood in the middle of my living room, staring at the door after it closed. The fridge kicked on behind me, making that groaning sound. The fridge kicked on again with that familiar groan. I glanced over at the mortgage letter still stuck there with the cow magnet. For a moment I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. But no, Rachel had been serious. And apparently so were my parents. I didn't feel angry yet, just off balance. Like the floor had tilted slightly, and I was waiting to see if it would keep tipping. After Rachel left, I stood there for a while, staring at the door like it might swing open again. It didn't. Eventually I sat down, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on work. But my mind kept circling back to what she'd said. Family asset, like she and Mark had the right to decide that for me. I figured if I was going to tell the whole story, I should explain how we got here, because this didn't start yesterday. I've been working since I was 16. My first job was bussing tables at a greasy diner near our high school. Minimum wage, plus tips if customers felt generous. Most didn't. After that came summer shifts at the hardware store, then a part-time job at the campus library during colleges. By the time I graduated, I developed a habit of saying yes to every extra hour I could get. I lived cheaply for a long time. A studio apartment with a view of a brick wall. Furniture from Craigslist. Meanwhile, Rachel was living a completely different life. She's 4 years younger. My parents paid for her cheer camp fees, her driving lessons, her prom dress, while telling me money was tight when I needed new brakes for my car. Rachel was the golden child. Teachers loved her. Neighbors adored her. When she forgot assignments, my parents said she was just tired. When I brought home a B instead of an A, they asked why I wasn't studying harder. It wasn't that she was evil or anything. She was just used to things bending in her direction. When I was in college, she got into a private university with a price tag that made my stomach hurt. My parents co-signed her loans without hesitation. I was at a state school on scholarships and part-time jobs. She studied communications, posting pictures from tailgate parties, spring breaks, and trendy coffee shops. I spent nights in the library trying to finish projects before my 6 a.m. shift unloading trucks at a warehouse. 5 years ago, when I bought the condo, it was the cheapest decent 2-bedroom I could find in a neighborhood that wasn't falling apart. It needed work. Peeling paint, ancient appliances, floors that squeaked in certain spots. But it was mine. I remember signing the paperwork with hands that wouldn't stop shaking because I was terrified I'd mess something up. Rachel came by once back then. She walked through the place, wrinkling her nose. "It's cozy," she said, which is the polite way of saying small. "It's what I can afford," I told her. She smiled like she was humoring me. "I mean, I could never live somewhere like this. But good for you." That comment stuck with me. I worked extra shifts fixing other people's laptops on weekends, lived on instant noodles, and skipped buying decent clothes for years just so I could own a place. Meanwhile, my sister treated it like some starter apartment she was too good for. Then she married Mark. He's fine, quiet guy. Teaches middle school science, always polite, but he never really said much when we were around each other. They rented a nice 3-bedroom apartment not far from here. A newer building with a gym and a rooftop deck that actually worked. Way nicer than my condo. Last year they had a baby. Cute kid. I sent gifts, visited, tried to be the good uncle. Then the daycare costs started hitting them. Mark's hours got cut. Rachel quit her part-time marketing job to stay home. Money problems started creeping into conversations. Little comments about bills, rent getting tight some months. I figured they'd downsize like most people do when costs get out of hand. Instead, Rachel showed up at my door claiming my condo now belonged to the family. Like it was community property just because we share DNA. And my parents, I wasn't even surprised they took her side. The difference now is that this place isn't some family toy everyone gets to borrow. It's the one thing I worked my back off to earn for myself. And suddenly Rachel thinks she can stroll in and claim it. And mom and dad will back her up, because they always do. But here's the thing. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not living in their house, eating their food, borrowing their car. I pay my own bills. I take care of my place. I finally have something solid under my feet. And I'll be honest, hearing Rachel call it selfish for me to keep the place I paid for lit something in my chest I hadn't felt before. Anger, sure. But also a kind of stubbornness I didn't even know I had. Because this time it's not about sharing toys or rides to school. It's my home. And I'm not giving it up. The call came the morning after Rachel showed up at my place. First it was Mom. "Sweetie, I heard you were a little tense yesterday." She said in that tone people use when they're about to lecture you but pretend they're not. "Tense?" I asked. Rachel told us what happened. You have to see it from her side. They have a baby. Rent's impossible right now. Mom, she showed up and announced she was moving into my home like it was already decided. Nobody asked me anything. She probably just assumed you'd help out. Family helps each other. That's what we do. I told her I wasn't agreeing to an thing. She sighed like I had just confessed to being the villain in a movie. "You don't even use the second bedroom," she said. "And it's just sitting there while they struggle. It doesn't seem fair." I told her again it wasn't happening. She said we'd talk more at dinner Sunday. I didn't even know there was a dinner Sunday. By lunchtime, my phone started buzzing again. This time it was my dad. Same speech, but with a disappointed tone, like I'd broken some kind of family code. He said things like step up and bigger picture. I reminded him I wasn't the one asking someone else to give up their home. He told me not to be dramatic. Then I got a text from an aunt I hadn't seen in over a year. Honey, they just need a break. You can get another place later. Like people keep spare condos in their back pocket. Like people keep spare condos in their back pocket. By that evening, Rachel sent a long message about how this was temporary, and for the good of the family. She attached a spreadsheet Mark had made showing how much money they'd save by moving in with me. It had rent listed at 0, utilities cut in half, and nothing for HOA fees or repairs. Like the place maintained itself out of kindness. I didn't respond. Instead, I checked the complex's public website. They list the standard lease terms there. Early termination, 3 months rent. My eyebrows went up. So this wasn't just about wanting more space. It was about avoiding a bill. A couple hours later, I called my friend Sam, who works at the front desk of a local real estate office. I asked some general questions about rental applications lately. Denials, things like that. He said there had been a lot. High debt, missed payments, credit scores in the tank. He didn't mention anyone by name, but I started connecting the dots myself. I didn't share any of that with Mom or Dad. No point yet. Friday afternoon, another call. Mom again. Doing family dinner Sunday. She said, everyone will be there. We can talk this through calmly. Calmly. Right. I knew exactly how those dinners went. A table full of relatives all nodding along. While someone tells you you're being unreasonable. Voices staying polite until you finally give in. It's like an intervention. But with lasagna. Still, I said fine. I'd go. Saturday evening, Rachel texted again. We need to be out of here in 4 weeks. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Harder for who? I wondered. I didn't answer. Sunday came. I drove over to my parents' place after lunch. Their house is the same one we grew up in. The same peeling wallpaper in the hallway. The same couch that sinks in the middle because Dad refuses to replace it. When I walked in, the smell of garlic bread hit me first. The table was already set. Rachel and Mark were sitting together on one side, like a panel waiting to interview me. My parents hovered in the kitchen. Hey, I said. Rachel smiled like nothing was wrong. Hey, we're just about to eat. I knew what the plan was the moment I sat down at that table. Rachel had that fake polite smile. The one she uses when she's about to ask for something big. Mark looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mom and Dad kept exchanging silent nods like they had a script ready. Rachel started first. We only need the condo for a year, she said, her voice soft, like she was doing me a favor by setting a timeline. A year? I asked. Well, maybe less, she said quickly. Depends how fast we get back on our feet. I didn't respond. She pushed the folder of papers toward me again. Mark and I worked out a plan, budget, timeline, everything. Mark cleared his throat. It's very organized. We'd cover utilities, Rachel added. Obviously, we just wouldn't be paying rent since you already own the place. Utilities? I asked, flipping through the pages. That's it. Rachel nodded like that was generous. Mom leaned in. Honey, it's temporary. Think of the baby. She needs her own room. I looked at Rachel. You rent a 3-bedroom now. It's too expensive, she said flatly. So get a smaller place. She didn't like that. Her mouth tightened. Why should we uproot everything when you have space sitting there unused? I stared at her. Because it's my home. Dad sighed, setting down his fork like he was about to deliver wisdom from a mountaintop. This is about family working together. You've got the room. They've got the room. They've got the need. It's common sense. I pointed at the papers in front of me. You wrote this like I already agreed. Did anyone think to actually ask me first? Silence. Rachel finally said, we figured you'd be reasonable once you saw the numbers. I flipped to the so-called budget page. No HOA fees listed. No repairs. Utilities cut in half like electricity bills run on vibes. Rent, 0. I pushed the folder back toward her. Not happening. Her smile faltered. Why not? You don't even use the second bedroom. That doesn't matter. It's just sitting there while we're drowning in bills, she said, her voice rising slightly. And you've got extra space you don't even need. It's selfish. There it was again. Selfish. Like the years I spent working double shifts, eating instant noodles, and skipping vacations so I could pay this place off didn't count. I leaned back in my chair. I looked at your lease, I said. Rachel froze. What? It's public, I said. 3 months rent if you break it early. Right? That's what this is really about. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Rachel's face flushed red. And that's none of your business, she snapped. You're making it my business, I said. Keeping my voice steady. You want to move into my home to avoid paying penalties on yours. At least be honest about it. Mom frowned. Is that true? Rachel glared at me like I'd betrayed her. We just need a fresh start. Why are you making this so hard? Because you showed up and announced you were moving in like I had no say. I said. Like my years of work don't matter because you want an easy way out. Mark finally spoke. Look, we're just trying to find a solution that works for everyone. For everyone, or just for you two? I asked. He didn't answer. Rachel turned to Mom, desperate. Tell him this makes sense. You know it does. Mom hesitated, then said, Honey, they do have the baby to think about. I cut her off. Then maybe they should have planned better instead of showing up here with fake budgets and expecting me to hand over my keys. Rachel slammed her hand on the table. We're family. Family helps each other. Family also respects each other. I said. You don't get to decide my home isn't mine anymore just because you made bad financial choices. Dad finally spoke up. All right, let's calm down. No, I said, standing. You all sat here ready to guilt trip me like I'm the bad guy for not giving up the one thing I've worked for. I'm not doing it. Rachel's voice shook now. So you'd rather see us homeless than help? You rent a 3-bedroom apartment, I said. Sell the furniture, break the lease, move somewhere cheaper. People do it all the time. But you're not moving in here. Mom looked stunned. You don't mean that? I do, I said. This isn't a debate anymore. Rachel's face burned red. Mark stared at the table like the wood grain was fascinating. I grabbed my jacket. Thanks for dinner, I said, heading for the door. Good luck with the lease. No one stopped me. As I left, I heard Rachel mutter something to Mom about me being cold-hearted. I didn't even look back. After tea, dinner, the family chorus started up. Rachel with "We can still work this out." Mom with "Family comes first." Dad with "Think about the bigger picture." Even an uncle I hadn't seen in a year weighed in with "She has a baby. You don't." I stopped replying. I wasn't changing my mind. A week passed. One night after work, I got home and noticed something by the door. Fine scratches near the lock, a scuff mark low on the wood, like someone had lightly kicked it. I ran my finger over the scratches. Could be nothing, sure. But I have lived here 5 years. I know every dent and squeak in this place. That hadn't been there before. My stomach felt heavy. I went inside, locked the door, and sat down at my laptop. I filled out the city's online non-emergency report form. Just the basics. Possible tampering. No entry, no suspects. I hit submit, got the confirmation email, and closed the laptop. The next day I installed a drill-resistant deadbolt and added 2 cameras, a door viewer facing the hallway and a small motion-activated camera inside covering the entry. Both recorded in high definition and sent alerts to my phone. Didn't cost much. Worth every penny if I was right about who'd been creeping around. For 2 nights, nothing happened. The camera stayed quiet. Still, I kept checking the feeds before bed, volume up on my phone in case an alert came through. The 3rd night it happened. 2:37 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand and woke me up. Motion detected at your door. I grabbed the phone and opened the app. The grainy black and white feed showed someone standing at my door. Rachel, hoodie pulled up, hair sticking out the sides, shoulders hunched. She had something shiny in her hand, moving it around the lock. My chest tightened. I hit record on the app, swung my legs out of bed, and dialed 911. Whispered to the dispatcher, "Someone's trying to break into my condo. I have video." I gave the address and stayed on the line. Rachel kept working at the lock like she'd done it before, like she thought I wasn't home. The hallway lights clicked on automatically. She froze for half a second, glanced over her shoulder, then went right back to jiggling the lock. The dispatcher said units were close and told me to stay where I was. I watched through the phone screen, my heart hammering. A minute later, 2 cops appeared in the hallway camera view, walking fast. Rachel didn't notice them until they were almost on top of her. I stayed behind the door until the officers told her to step back. Then I opened it and showed them the live feed with the tool at the lock. They asked for her ID. She stammered something about forgetting her keys. I showed them the recording from the app, her with the screwdriver, clear as day. They detained her right there in the hallway. Cuffs on, red marks on her wrists, the whole thing. I wasn't smug, I wasn't even angry, in that moment. Just tired and shaky, like my body hadn't caught up with my brain yet. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. One officer stayed to take my statement while the other walked Rachel down the hall. 5 minutes later, Mark showed up. Hair messy, wearing sweatpants, looking like he'd sprint over. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice cracking. "She tried to break in," I said flatly. Mark looked at the cop, then back at me. "It's a misunderstanding. She had a spare from before." I cut him off. "I never gave her a spare." "She thought she still had one," he said weakly. "She didn't," I replied. Mark rubbed his face. After that he didn't argue. just muttered something about calling a lawyer and followed the cops out. I locked the door behind them, double-checked the deadbolt, and sat on the couch staring at nothing for a long time. The cameras kept recording until the hallway went quiet again. The morning after Rachel was arrested, I called off work for a couple of hours. I wanted everything documented before people started calling me names again. First stop was the police station. I turned over the video files. They said they'd pulled a 911 audio from dispatch. One of the officers gave me a case number and said the video made things pretty straightforward. They'd filed the report, forwarded it to the prosecutor, and I'd get updates later. When I got home, I made 2 copies of everything. One in a thumb drive, the other in a locked folder in my cloud account. I printed the incident report and put it in a folder with my mortgage papers. Then I emailed my boss saying I'd be a bit late to work because of a personal security incident. That was all I wrote. He replied, "Handle what you need to. Thanks for letting me know." I left it at that. By noon my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Mom called first. "How could you do this to your sister?" she asked, her voice sharp. "She tried to break into my condo at 2 in the morning, I said. "I didn't do this, she did." "You didn't have to call the police," Mom said, like there had been some better option. "She had a screwdriver in my lock," I replied. "What did you want me to do?" "Open the door and offer her coffee." "Family should handle things privately," she said. "Does privately mean pretending it didn't happen?" I asked. She didn't answer that. 2 hours later Dad called. Same tone, different words. "She has a baby," he said. "She made a mistake. Don't ruin her life over this." "She made her own choices," I said. "I was asleep in my own home. I'm not apologizing for protecting it." He muttered something about me being cold. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. By evening my aunt texted. She didn't mean it. Just drop the charges. I ignored it. 2 days later, a neighbor mentioned something about an old fraud case. Court records showed a deferred sentence and probation from years back. The new arrest didn't violate active probation, but it did mean a new conviction on top of a prior case. I looked it up later. Court records are public if you know where to look. Sure enough, Rachel had a small fraud charge from 5 years ago. Deferred sentence, probation, fine paid. Nothing major, but it was there. I didn't post about it anywhere. Didn't tell cousins. Didn't go on some big rant online. I answered the prosecutor's questions, emailed the footage when they asked for it, and kept everything boring and professional. Rachel's case moved quickly. They booked her on misdemeanor charges. Related to the attempted break-in, and the prior case didn't help. She pleaded guilty to avoid a bigger mess. The judge gave her a short sentence, 3 months, and a criminal record that wouldn't go away this time. Mark texted me while she was inside. A long paragraph about how they'd been under stress. Daycare costs, medical bills, rent too high, life coming at them too fast. He said Rachel was just trying to do what parents do. Keep a roof over their kid's head. I read it twice, saved it, and didn't respond. Their money situation tanked hard after that. They were still locked into a fixed-term lease. When they broke the lease, the 3-month penalty hit. After that they found a short-term month-to-month place, and the rate was even higher. With Rachel not working, and now carrying a record, Mark was covering everything on a teacher's salary. 3 months later, Rachel got out. I heard from Mom that they'd moved in with her and Dad for a while. "That's between you and them," I said. "Not my business anymore." Mom didn't like that answer. She said the house. He was tense. Rachel and Mark argued about bills. Dad hated the noise. Mom tried to keep the peace. I stayed out of it. A month later I saw Dad in person. He stopped by my condo to drop off some mail that had been sent to their address. He looked tired. "Your sister's having a rough time," he said finally. "She made her choices," I replied. "She says you hate her now." "I don't hate her," I said. "But I'm done being the person everyone leans on while calling me selfish." He didn't argue. He didn't defend her either. He just nodded slowly, handed me the mail, and left. That was the last real conversation we had about it. Life went back to normal for me faster than I expected. I kept my routine the same. One Saturday I fixed the sticky window in my living room. Another day I finally painted the patchy wall in the hallway with cheap rollers and way too much blue tape. Little things I'd been meaning to do for years. Later I heard through Mom that Rachel wanted to clear the air. My first thought was that she wanted to yell at me. My second thought was that she probably wanted something again. I didn't reach out. Instead I mailed them. One thing. A framed photo of my front door with the new lock installed. Under it, a short note. "Hope you find a place that's yours for real. No swearing, no insults. Just clear." 2 weeks later Mom called. "Rachel wants to talk," she said carefully. Like I was a wild animal she didn't want to startle. "About what?" She wants to apologize," Mom said. "Does this apology come before or after she asked for something?" I asked. Silence on the line. I'll meet her, I said finally. But here's the deal. My home is off the table. Nobody shows up uninvited. If she can't agree to that, I'm not coming. Mom agreed. The meeting was set for Saturday at their house. Neutral ground, Mom said. Rachel was already there when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with her arms crossed and chin raised. Mark sat beside her, looking like he wanted to vanish into his chair. I sat across from them. All right, I said. You wanted to talk. Go ahead. Rachel didn't waste time. You didn't have to call the cops, she began, her voice sharp. Family doesn't do that to each other. I stared at her. You tried to break into my home. I was desperate, she said. Like that explained everything. You wouldn't listen, you left us no choice. There was a choice, I said. You could have found another apartment like normal people. She waved a hand. Do you know how hard it is with a baby? With bills? We needed help. You wanted a free house, I said flatly. We deserved help? She snapped. You don't have kids. You don't understand what it's like. All that space going to waste while we were drowning. My jaw tightened. Space I worked for. Space I paid for. While you were calling it small and laughing at it 5 years ago. Rachel rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. That was different. No, I said, keeping my voice steady. You treated this place like it was nothing until you needed it. Then you decided it was yours. Not asked. Decided you could have just let us stay a few months. She shot back. But no, you had to turn it into this big thing. Pressing charges. Really? You ruined my record. You ruined your record, I said. You picked up that screwdriver. You showed up at 2:37 in the morning. Not me. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes sharp. You think you're better than us because you have a condo and no responsibilities? You think working a few extra hours makes you some kind of hero? I laughed once, short and dry. No. I think it makes me the person who ends the place you tried to steal. Her face flushed red. We just needed a break. And I needed boundaries, I said. Now I have them. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. You showed up uninvited. You ignored every no I gave you. You tried to break in, and now you're angry at me because there were consequences. Mark finally spoke, his voice low. She just means it didn't have to go this far. It went exactly as far as she pushed it. I said. I'm not carrying that for her. Rachel glared at me, fists clenched on the table. One day you'll need help. Don't expect us to be there. I stood up. Good. That way we're all clear. She blinked, like she hadn't expected that answer. I hope you figure things out, I said. But my home is off limits forever. No debates, no surprises, we're done here. I walked out before she could fire back. Weeks passed after that. Mom tried a couple more times to get everyone together for a family dinner. Each time, I gave her the same answer. If my home comes up even once, I'm leaving. She said she understood. I stuck to my routine. Work, gym, fixing small things around the condo. I bought a few cheap plants for the windowsill, upgraded my desk chair. Finally, life felt quiet. One afternoon, a cousin mentioned that Rachel had picked up a part-time job at a daycare. Mark started taking on extra tutoring hours at school. After a few months, they found a small rental farther from the city. An older, cheaper place, but theirs. I didn't reach out. Not angry, just done. A year later, the condo looked better than it ever had. Fresh paint on every wall, not just the hallway this time. New locks on both doors. The squeaky floorboard near the bedroom, finally fixed after years of telling myself I'd get around to it. I bought a decent couch and got rid of the lumpy one I'd been holding onto since college. Picked up a used rug that actually matched the curtains for once. Even the closet office looked better. I installed a real shelf instead of stacking everything on milk crates. The plants on the windowsill were still alive somehow. A couple of them even had new leaves. I watered them on schedule, gave them good sunlight. Sometimes talked to them when I was bored. Coming home felt different now. Not because the place looked nice, but because it was mine, in a way it hadn't been before. I'd open the door after work, hear the deadbolt click behind me and feel it in my shoulders. The weight of the past year just gone. No surprise visitors, no guilt trips, no phone calls telling me I was selfish. The quiet wasn't lonely, it was steady. For the first time in a long time, I could sit on my couch with the TV off. No noise, no drama, just breathing in my own space, without wondering what fight was coming next. Peace, not victory, not revenge, just boundaries that stayed where I put them. And for me, that was enough.